Olá a todos! Today I will be talking about the verbs pedir and perguntar. While in English we only have one verb to ask, in Portuguese we have two. Pedir and perguntar have specific uses. From my experience, these can be tricky for students to differentiate. I'll explain when and how to use each with practical examples as usual. If you enjoy my videos, don't forget to subscribe. Yesterday was my birthday. It would be a great birthday present. I also wanted to thank all my patrons that voted on the topic for today's video. Did you know that my patrons help me decide the topics for my YouTube videos and get to watch them firsthand before being public on YouTube? If you are interested in learning more about all my Patreon perks, check out my Patreon page. E agora, vamos começar! Before we dive in each verb, it's important to understand the family of each word. The noun of the verb pedir is pedido, which is a request or a demand. And the noun that goes with perguntar is pergunta, a question. Therefore, it's essential to keep in mind that we use pedir to make requests and perguntar to ask questions. The verb perguntar implies that a question was asked. Now, let's start with the verb pedir. The first important thing to be aware of is that the verb pedir is much more commonly used than perguntar. The second thing is that pedir has many more uses than perguntar. Pedir is to ask for something, to request, or to demand something. Pay close attention to the word for, used in to ask for. This translation is exclusive to pedir. However, take note that in Portuguese we do not need a preposition with the verb pedir. So let's look at some examples. Eu pedi uma bicicleta aos meus pais. I asked my parents for a bicycle. Eu normalmente peço dinheiro à minha mãe. Pedi favor à Maria. Costumava pedir à Ana para me comprar leite. Pedi ajuda à Rita com os trabalhos de casa. For sure, you can notice from these examples that the logic when using pedir is always asking someone for something. Just like when you apologize for something in a more formal way. Pay attention that in this specific case in Portuguese, you need to use the preposition por. Peço desculpa a todos pelo atraso. Now let's look at other uses of pedir. An example as to request. Pedi para ter uma reunião com a diretora da escola. Another good use of pedir is to borrow. Pedir emprestado. Pedi emprestado livro à Maria. Next, one of the most important uses for pedir is to order. Commonly used at restaurants and cafes. Queria pedir uma bica, por favor. Estão prontos para pedir? The last use I want to talk about for pedir is to ask for, to want. This is used for pricing situations. A loja pede 500 euros pelo computador. A good expression to know is é só pedir. You might hear it at stores, as in just ask. Se precisar de mais alguma coisa, é só pedir. The verb perguntar is much more straightforward than pedir. Remember, just like I said in my last video, if in Portuguese you want to ask a question, we make questions. So you will have to use the verb fazer for this particular question. Posso fazer uma pergunta? Now, if you want to say, Can I ask you something? Posso perguntar-te uma coisa? If you are asking a question, questioning or inquiring about a specific thing, you will need to use perguntar. Note that here you are not asking for. Perguntar is commonly used to ask who, what, when, where, and if. In Portuguese we say quem pergunta quer saber, meaning those who ask want to know. So with perguntar, the outcome is to get an answer to a question. Perguntei ao João se ele queria jantar fora. Perguntamos quem queria café. Pergunta a que horas abre o restaurante. Vou perguntar onde fica o banco. Posso perguntar o que aconteceu? Pedir versus perguntar. To help you even further, let's take a look at sentences with pedir and perguntar and identify how different the meanings are in Portuguese. Another helpful hint is that usually the outcome of pedir is something or some type of action, while with perguntar, it's an answer. O João pediu gelado. João asked, ordered for an ice cream. O empregado deu-lhe o gelado. The waiter gave him the ice cream. In this case, the opposite of pedir is to give, dar. O João recebeu o gelado. João got the ice cream. In this case, the opposite of pedir is to get, to receive, receber. Now let's look at a similar sentence with perguntar. O João perguntou se podia ter gelado. Ele perguntou, posso ter gelado? João asked if he could have an ice cream. He asked, can I have an ice cream? O empregado respondeu que sim. The waiter responded that yes, he could. In this case, the opposite of perguntar is responder, to respond. The outcome of perguntar is always a response or an answer. So overall, think that pedir is used to ask, request for things, and the result is some type of action, while perguntar is used to ask questions and that the result will be a response. Let's practice some sentences together. How would you say, Anna asked me to bring a cake? Would you use pedir or perguntar? Are you asking for something or are you asking a question? You are asking for something, an action, to bring a cake. So we would say, Ana pediu-me para trazer bolo. How would you say, I asked the teacher if we had homework? Would you use pedir or perguntar? Are you requesting for something or did you ask a question? There was a question involved, right? Professora, temos trabalhos de casa hoje? So in this case, you would definitely use the verb perguntar. Perguntei à professora se tínhamos trabalhos de casa. Practice writing sentences like these and listen to Portuguese TV to identify and become familiar with these two verbs. I'll be back next week with more tips on how to succeed in learning Portuguese. Don't forget to subscribe and to leave me a comment. Obrigada pela vossa companhia e até à próxima!